Imagine it's 5 years from today. You're sitting at your kitchen table, looking at your bank account, and that familiar sinking feeling hits you right in the chest. You've been working hard. You haven't missed a day. You've even had a couple of raises since then. But somehow, the number on that screen looks almost exactly the same as it does right now. Or maybe it's a little higher, but your stress levels have doubled because you've managed to fill that extra income with a bigger car payment, a more expensive apartment, and a bunch of stuff you don't even remember buying. Sound familiar? Well, here's something that might shock you. Most people aren't staying broke because they don't earn enough money. They're staying broke because they are currently making a specific 5-year mistake that feels like progress while it's actually destroying their future. It's a psychological trap that doesn't look like a trap when you're walking into it. It looks like treating yourself, or keeping up with the Joneses, or just living a normal life. But 5 years down the road, the math becomes brutal and the realization hits you far too late. My name is Man in Uniform, and I spend way too much time analyzing why some people build incredible wealth while others with the exact same income stay stuck in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle for their entire lives. If you're tired of feeling like you're running on a financial hamster wheel and you actually want to understand how to move the needle on your net worth, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this information helps you out. Now, before we dive into this 5-year mistake that's quietly draining your bank account, let me be crystal clear about something. I'm not here to make you feel bad about your past choices. We've all made them. I've made them. But the difference between the people who retire wealthy and the people who work until they're 80 often comes down to one thing: the ability to recognize when the game is rigged before you've spent 5 years playing it. The average person thinks about their money in 30-day increments. How am I going to pay this month's rent, this month's car payment, this month's credit card bill? But wealth is built in 5-year blocks, and if you don't understand the opportunity cost of the decisions you're making right now, you aren't just losing money today, you're losing the version of yourself that could have been financially free by 35 or 40. Look, your 20s and 30s are basically quicksand if you don't have a plan. You're standing there watching everyone around you buy things they can't afford with money they haven't earned yet, and you start to think that's normal. You start to think that a $700 car payment is just the price of doing business as an adult. But here's the thing nobody tells you until it's too late. By the time you realize that car or that lifestyle was a mistake, you've already sacrificed the most powerful wealth-building tool you will ever own: your time. So let's talk about why this specific 5-year window is the most dangerous period of your financial life, and how you can avoid the trap that catches 90% of people without them even noticing. So what is this 5-year mistake exactly? Most people think a financial mistake is something big and obvious, like betting your life savings on a meme coin or losing your house in a poker game. But the most dangerous mistakes are the ones that look like a series of small, logical steps. Here's how it usually plays out. You get that first real job or that first big promotion. You've been grinding, you've been living like a college student, and you decide it's finally time to level up. You get the nicer apartment because you're tired of having roommates. You trade in the reliable sedan for a crossover with heated seats because, hey, you can afford the monthly payment. You start saying yes to the $15 cocktails and the $100 brunch dates because you work hard and you deserve it. On a month-to-month basis, your budget balances. You aren't going into debt yet, but you aren't really saving anything meaningful either. You tell yourself, I'll start investing seriously in a couple of years when I'm making even more. But here is the math that will keep you up at night if you actually sit down and look at it. Let's say you're 25 years old. If you can scrape together just $500 a month and put it into a boring index fund, by the time you're 30, you've got about $35,000. That doesn't sound like quit your job money, right? But because of how compound interest works, that $35,000, if you never added another penny to it, would grow to nearly $400,000 by the time you retire. The 5-year mistake is choosing the upgraded lifestyle from age 25 to 30 instead of building that foundation. By the time you hit 30 and realize, oh wait, I actually want to own a home and have a family and maybe not work until I'm 70, you haven't just lost $35,000. You've lost the most valuable years of compounding you will ever have. You have effectively deleted the most productive workers in your financial factory. And look, I get it. The pressure to be normal is intense. We live in a world where your social status is often measured by the things people can see: your clothes, your car, your vacation photos on Instagram. But normal in America today is having less than $1,000 in a savings account. Normal is carrying a balance on a credit card that charges you 24% interest. Normal is being one car breakdown or one medical bill away from total financial ruin. If you choose to be normal for the next 5 years, you are choosing to be stressed for the next 40. I see this all the time with people in their 30s. They come to me and they're making 6 figures, but they feel poor. Why? Because they spent their 20s building a lifestyle they now have to maintain. They are locked into a high consumption cage. They can't take a lower-paying job they actually love, they can't start that business they've been dreaming about, and they certainly can't take a year off because the overhead of their life is too high. They realized the mistake 5 years too late. They realized that the treat-yourself phase turned into a trap-yourself reality. The scary thing is that the economy is designed to keep you in this loop. Banks want you to have a car payment. Credit card companies want you to pay over time with 0% interest that jumps to 29% the second you miss a deadline. Even your friends, often unintentionally, want you to keep spending because if you stop, it forces them to look at their own bank accounts. Here's a phrase I want you to remember. Wealth is what you don't see. It's the money that stays in the brokerage account. It's the freedom to say no to a toxic boss. It's the peace of mind at 3 a.m. But for the first 5 years, building wealth feels like you're losing. It feels like you're falling behind your friends who are driving BMWs while you're still driving the Honda. But I promise you, in 5 years, the roles reverse. The person who avoided the 5-year mistake has options. The person who made it has obligations. Now I want to talk about something that's a bit uncomfortable, but it's the primary reason this 5-year mistake is so hard to spot while you're making it. It's the social tax of your friend group. We've all been there. You're out with your buddies and someone mentions they just leased the new Tesla or they're booking a 10-day trip to the Amalfi Coast. Suddenly, your 5-year-old Toyota and your plan to staycation this year feel a little pathetic. You start to feel this internal pressure to prove that you're doing just as well as they are. This is where the mistake transitions from a math problem to a psychological one. Here's the reality. Most of those people are faking it. I've seen the behind the scenes of people's finances who look like they're absolutely crushing it, and it's often a house of cards held together by high-interest debt and zero breathing room. But even if they can afford it, that doesn't mean you can. When you spend that extra $1,000 a month on a lifestyle upgrade during these critical 5 years, you aren't just spending $12,000 a year. You are spending the future version of that money. If you're in your 20s or 30s, every dollar you spend today is effectively killing $10 or $20 of your future wealth. Think of it this way. That $600 car payment isn't just $600. Over a 5-year loan, that's $36,000 out of your pocket. But if that same $600 had been invested in a low-cost index fund for those 5 years and then left to grow for another 20, it would be worth over $300,000. Is a heated steering wheel and a backup camera really worth $300,000 of your freedom? Because that is the trade you are making. The mistake everyone realizes too late is that they traded their freedom for features. They wanted the feature of a nice house in a cool neighborhood or the feature of designer clothes, and they didn't realize they were signing away the freedom to retire early, the freedom to start a business, or the freedom to simply not care if they get laid off tomorrow. Look, I'm not saying you have to live like a monk. I'm not saying you should never buy a nice coffee or go on a vacation. What I am saying is that you need to be hyper-aware of lifestyle creep. This is the silent killer. It's when your expenses rise exactly in tandem with your income. You get a $10,000 raise, and suddenly you need a $10,000 more expensive life. If you can just hold your lifestyle steady for 5 years while your income grows, you will create a gap. That gap is where wealth is born. But most people close that gap as fast as they can because they're afraid of looking like they aren't successful to people they don't even like that much. And here's the thing about those 5 years. They go by in a blink. You think you have plenty of time to get serious later, But later usually comes with more responsibilities. Later comes with kids or aging parents or health issues or a housing market that's even more insane than it is now. If you don't build the foundation during the easy years, when it's just you and maybe a partner, it becomes 10 times harder to do it when the stakes are higher. The 5-year mistake is assuming that your future self will somehow be more disciplined than you are right now. Newsflash, they won't be. In fact, your future self will likely be more tired, more stressed, and more invested in maintaining the status quo. The only way to win is to make the decision now to stop playing the normal game. So if the math is so clear and the trap is so obvious once you point it out, why does everyone keep falling for it? Well, it's because of a psychological phenomenon I call the middle-class mirage. When you start making decent money, let's say you've crossed that $75,000 or $100,000 threshold, you stop feeling like a struggling student and start feeling like an adult. And in our culture, being a successful adult is synonymous with consumption. You feel this internal itch to prove that your hard work has paid off. But here's the kicker. The more you spend to look successful, the less actual success you're building. The 5-year mistake is essentially a failure of imagination. You can easily imagine how much better you'd feel in a new car or a bigger house right now, but it's almost impossible for our brains to imagine the feeling of having $500,000 in a brokerage account 10 years from now. One is a high-definition sensory experience, the smell of the leather, the quiet of the engine. The other is just a number on a screen. We're wired to choose the high-definition now over the abstract later. But let's look at what happens in year 4 or 5 of this mistake. This is where the realization starts to creep in. You had the nice car for a few years. The new car smell is gone. The heated seats are just seats. The bigger apartment is now just a place you have to spend 4 hours cleaning every weekend. The upgraded lifestyle has become your new baseline. It doesn't give you joy anymore. It just feels normal. Meanwhile, you look at your net worth and realize it hasn't moved. You're essentially a high-paid servant to your own lifestyle. You're working 50 hours a week not to build a future, but to maintain a present that you don't even enjoy that much anymore. This is the point where most people double down. They think, I just need to make more money. They chase the next promotion, the next side hustle, the next big break. But because they haven't fixed the 5-year mistake, the habit of matching expenses to income, the extra money just gets swallowed up by more stuff. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a massive hole in the bottom by turning the faucet on higher. You're getting wet, but the bucket is still empty. The alternative, the path the invisible wealthy take, is to live a life that looks boring on the outside, but is incredibly exciting on the inside. These are the people who keep the same car for 10 years. They live in the starter home long after they could afford the forever home. To their neighbors, they look like they're just doing okay. But on their laptops, their net worth is exploding. They understand that every year they don't upgrade their life is a year they're buying back their future. Here's a secret that most financial gurus won't tell you because it doesn't sound inspiring. The first $100,000 is a total grind. It's not fun. It feels like you're sacrificing everything for nothing. But once you hit that milestone, the math starts to do the heavy lifting for you. The 5-year mistake is giving up in year 2 or 3 because you're tired of living small while everyone else is living large. You have to be willing to look unsuccessful for 5 years so that you can be unshakable for the rest of your life. Look, I've been on both sides of this. I've had the moments where I spent money to impress people I didn't like, and I've had the moments where I sat in a 10-year-old car knowing I had more in my savings than the guy in the Ferrari next to me. I can tell you from experience, the second feeling is infinitely better. It's the difference between wearing a mask and actually being the person the mask is supposed to represent. We've talked about the math, the psychology, and the social pressure that leads to this 5-year mistake. But I want to leave you with something practical. I want to show you what happens when you decide to do the opposite of normal. I call this the 5-year flip. In the first 2 years of the flip, your life looks exactly the same as it does now. You're working hard, you're staying disciplined, and your friends are probably asking why you haven't upgraded your phone or why you're still living in that tiny apartment. You won't feel wealthy yet. You'll feel like you're missing out. But around year 3, something happens. Your emergency fund is fully stocked, your high-interest debt is gone, and your investment account starts to grow by more than you're actually putting in some months. This is the moment where the stress of being disciplined starts to be replaced by the peace of being secure. By year 5, the roles have completely reversed. The people who made the mistake, the ones who leased the cars and bought the houses they could barely afford, are now trapped. They're stressed about inflation, they're stressed about their jobs, and they're one bad break away from a crisis. But you have the gap. You have a 5-figure or even 6-figure cushion that gives you the power to say no. So here is your exact 3-step action plan to ensure you don't realize this mistake 5 years too late. Step 1. Audit your baseline. Look at your fixed expenses: rent, car, insurance, subscriptions. If these take up more than 50% of your take-home pay, you are in the danger zone. You are one promotion away from a lifestyle trap. Your goal for the next 5 years is to keep this baseline exactly where it is, no matter how much more money you make. Step 2. Automate the wealth tax. Treat your investments like a bill you have to pay. Set up an automatic transfer the day you get paid. If the money never hits your checking account, you can't spend it on a treat-yourself moment. You're essentially tricking your brain into thinking you earn less than you do. Step 3. Choose your status symbol wisely. Most people choose symbols that depreciate: cars, clothes, gadgets. I want you to choose a symbol that appreciates: your net worth. Make that the number you're proud of. When you see someone in an $80,000 truck, don't think they're rich. Think they have an $80,000 liability. It changes how you see the world. Look, the next 5 years are gonna pass anyway. You can spend them building a life that looks good on the outside but feels empty on the inside, or you can spend them building a foundation that will support you for the rest of your life. The average person realizes this mistake when they're 45 and looking at their retirement projections in a panic. You have the chance to realize it right now. Don't trade your 50s and 60s for a slightly nicer version of your 20s. It's a bad trade. The math doesn't work, and the psychology is a lie. If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of most people because you're actually willing to look at the numbers. Now, the only thing left to do is act. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.